we've got the Captain Cod sequence, I'll just run the bit we've got at the moment. It's here like this. And I just want to tidy up the bit at the end here. So there's a sequence here which actually I based on Frankie Howard, but in fact it goes all the way back to Max Miller, who was one of the great music hall artists. So the fisherman is here stroking the cod, and then the European trawler comes up behind him and he does whoops-a-daisy expression here. So that's what we're working on, and I just want to tidy up this hand that he's got. I'm using a piece of software called Harmony, which was developed for it was developed with Disney by a wonderful American company, a wonderful Canadian company, which is called Toon Boom. So you can see some versions of the Harmony software out in the shops, but mostly it's fairly difficult. So I'm putting in Captain Cod's hand, just slipping round the back of his coat here, so he looks as being goosed by the foreign trawler as we hear the national anthem of Europe, bit by Beethoven. Sorry to do a disservice to Beethoven here, and I was really quite taken by the idea of helping in the campaign. I don't think I'm a natural anti-European. I'm naturally very pro-Europe, but I think the bureaucracy is out of control, and if anything to focus attention on that bureaucracy must be good. Also, it's a great character, and it's nice to be able to bring that to life, and I think that's probably sufficient there. Now I'm just going to I'm going to colour in some of these panels, some of these frames. I've got my background. All I want to do is make sure that everything in front of the background is white, and it's a fairly laborious process, and we'll use the magic of a speeded up camera, a speeded up version of my laptop, desktop, to show you how these frames go from just being drawn to being coloured. In this case, all I'm doing is colouring the pictures in white, and but it is nevertheless time-consuming. It's exactly the same amount of time it would take to colour these in multiple colours, which is what I'm going to do at the end of the film, when the captain, like Bretty Brexit in the earlier film, changes from black and white into full colour. That sort of moment of Disney fantasy, the wonders of Technicolor. Technicolor, of course, was an incredibly complicated system in its original form, and required huge numbers of technicians to be on board all the time. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that it probably added about 20% to the budget of a film in the 1940s and 1950s, certainly. And the Technicolor people used to be on hand in order to ensure that the film people used coordinated costumes. You get some wonderful examples of that in things like State Fair. And Disney was one of the first people on board the Technicolor bus. So, yeah. One of the so something which is certain here is I'm actually filming on twos. So each frame lasts for each frame of drawing, each cell is exposed for 2 frames. So instead of there being 24 frames a second, I'm only drawing 12 frames a second. This is in contrast to the scene I did with Bretty, Bretty Brexit, where she is actually on ones. She's every frame of film that you see, I have drawn. In her case, in this case, we're being a bit economical, but it's actually, this film is twice the length of the Bretty Brexit film, and I've got planned another 2 more films, and I'm working with the most brilliant composer, so called David. So we don't really want to make a great fuss, but his music is really quite inspired, and sometimes when you're animating something, you've got to listen to the music again and again to try and pick up the nuances. And here, in this film, one of the things I'm doing is picking up a rhythm, which isn't the main rhythm of the tune, I think, and I'm getting the fish to dance at the beginning to that. You can see it here. You may also notice while we're doing this that around the walls I've got lots of storyboards. These are storyboards for other projects. And again, you never quite know at what point it's not so much inspiration as the computer is rather slow in processing your the work you've been doing, and so there's a few moments to scribble something, and to make use of all the time available. Animation is particularly not about inspiration. Animation is about putting in the hours and making sure you've got the technical bit right. The starting point for 2D animation is really, can you draw? And yes, I can draw. The next bit is simply about whether or not you're prepared to be patient enough just simply to do the work. If you're prepared to be patient enough to do the work, then it's a game of how many hours are you prepared to put in. And in the case of Captain Cod, this is about 2 weeks full-time work. So it's just under a minute's worth of screen time. And as you can see, Cod he's active in every second frame of film. There are 1 or 2 effect sequences here, which are on ones, which are where I'm drawing every frame of film. The fish, for the most part, are on 2s, but there are points where I've in-betweened the fish, and they're on 1s. The water is on 2s, but generally on a different level, and therefore on it's at a different rhythm to the cod. So where we've got the water moving around, there is something unique in every frame of film at that point. The boat is on 1s where it moves across, but it's really that's really cut-out animation. We're just moving that around in the background. The like the Bretty Brexit film, just introducing her. This film also is drawing on a music hall, on a theatrical thesaurus, a theatrical encyclopedia of activity. So we've got these wonderful backdrops which roll down. These were designed really to make to be useful in theatres where they didn't have enough space for a proper fly tower, but they roll down in a very distinctive way. I quite like them. So the first one where you see the French reference to bureaucracy, the European bureaucracy, which we're so opposed to, that is one of those. And the next one which comes down, which is the image of all the fish, well, it's actually not all the fish, but it's some of the flatfish and round fish, and a skate, common skate, which is not at all common, as I pointed out. That's a more conventional backdrop which comes down. You see the way these two backdrops are revealed in different ways. It's theatrical. So again, I'm very conscious of the theatrical elements in this animation. As I say, we're referencing Max Miller. We're referencing therefore Frankie Howard. Max. I'm going to do another tribute to Max Miller later on. Max had an extraordinary way of coming towards the front of the stage, and he would lean on the front of the stage and he'd talk to the audience as if the audience, as if he was conspiring with the audience. I recommend to my students that's a way actually also to teach. Although you're saying the same thing every time, you want to try to give the impression that this particular audience, that this is the first time you've said it. This audience is special, and together you've got this moment where you're sharing a secret. And we're almost finished. As I say, we've got the magic of the magic of speeding up the camera slightly. We're not speeding it up as I'm talking, of course. I'm just whittering away. I'm going to try and do a film where you can actually see the growth of a character from the very beginning, but at the moment I really only thought of letting you in on the tricks at this stage. Now look, the green shows me the frame that's coming. It's a sort of onion skinning trick that look, you see, it's an onion skinning trick that we've got here. It's rather nice. He's very clearly stroking that fish, and the fish closes his eyes at the point where he's being stroked, because we want to make it clear the fish is enjoying this. The fish is not being tortured by the Captain Cod. So the fish is actually enjoying this, and then the European trawler comes along, and Captain Cod lets the fish go back into the water, because cod has a very healthy and charming rapport with these fish. For those of you who are familiar with the Adobe products, the advantage of this harmony thing is that it allows me to draw as if I'm drawing in Photoshop, as I draw every pixel. I can draw very easily, but it remembers these pixels as vectors, so a little bit like drawing in Illustrator. And here you see I'm using one of these pen tool things designed by Wacom. We have a Cintiq next door which allows us to actually draw on the screen, and I can't seem to get on with it really, I'm afraid. So I don't use that. I use this one. The other advantage of this is we've programmed the Cintiqs, the Wacom, the Intuos thing, so that it draws with exactly the same pen width as I would draw if I were drawing on paper. We can actually I can actually do some of this in a quite traditional way on paper, scan it in, and I would defy anyone to tell me which bits were done directly on screen through the computer, and which bits were done on paper and then scanned in. In fact, I'm not really sure I can even remember myself. And the same thing is true of the backgrounds. Some of the backgrounds, the fish and the picture of Brighton, which you'll see at the end, and the Union flag, which we're going to be using in almost all of these little films. These were partly drawn on paper and then finished on the computer. So it's a hybrid system. And the trick with all of these programs is to harness them so that they're helping. We don't want to be bullied into using new techniques for the sake of the new techniques. And one of the things I find actually very frustrating with the harmony thing, but it's probably because I haven't learned it as well as I should, is sometimes you draw something and you want to spin it around, and I'm not very good at doing it on this harmony system. I feel much more comfortable doing that on paper. So fiddling around with my drawings, I do that on paper. But the routine, the boring stuff, I'm afraid I find the harmony system perfect, and I much recommend it actually. There are other systems like this out there. There's a French one, which I've tried, and it's very good. But it's partly what you get used to, and I've got used to this, and I like it. In this particular film, the animation is very, very straightforward. There's almost no smears, which normally I like. This is where you would stretch out. In fact, I'll show you how we do it. I might put one in just simply to show you. Where you've got two key drawings. We start with the key drawings, and then we fill in the in-betweens. Where you've got two extreme key drawings, and you want an in-between, which is going to spread or smear between the two drawings. So in this particular case, we're going to take Captain Cod's hand. Here we've got one drawing, and here we've got another. In fact, and we're moving from the drawing in green to the drawing in red, and this is the drawing in the middle, which is the smear, and we'll just move the finger, and this will smear comfortably from one drawing one drawing to the other. So your eye doesn't notice the fact that I've extended the fingers, but it guides you. The principle is that you want to overlap one drawing with another drawing. So if the two drawings are quite a long way away, you can stretch the drawing in between. It's what Williams talks about when he's talking about timing and placing. Your timing dictates how many drawings you can have, but you really want to have each drawing overlapping. So sometimes you need to expand your hands to fill the space. Is that clear? I don't know. Anyway, here's the more obvious bit with Bretty Brexit drinking tea, and this is on ones, as I said. And here we've got our version of Britannia, and she's drinking tea. I thought that was very British. But what you see from the harmony, you see the green line, which is, let's say, frame 1, and the red line, which is frame 3, or maybe the other way around. And what I'm doing in betweening is I want to stick my black line directly between the red and the green, and this will smooth out the action. So I've already got my keyframes in, and all I'm doing here is in betweening. What's often considered rather boring, but actually I find it endlessly fascinating, and the harmony system I think has seduced me into thinking that in betweening is the best bit of animation. It's very relaxing, and it's technical. You get it right. If you don't get it right, it's obvious, but it's about getting it right. And here we see the girl in the finished film. I have no idea why that's in this film here at all. I don't know how this bit of film arrived, got onto this timeline, but anyway, I'm showing it to you now. And let's have a look at Captain Cod in the finished version with all the buttonholes in place, and there were one or two buttons which I think hadn't been properly coloured. And anyway, this is the finished version here.